Hello, I'm Basil Valentine, and this is Unprecedented TV, unfiltered, uncensored, unprecedented, the home of free speech here on the internet. Do please like and subscribe over at YouTube. Follow us on X, and remember, I'm on air every day, Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. for Ascending Order, your daily news edit, with live guests and all the genuinely most important stories from around the world. Don't allow yourself to be propagandized by the corporate media. Forget the world at one on Radio 4. Join me, Basil Valentine, instead, 1 p.m. on X, Monday to Friday, also on YouTube. And I'll see you all very soon. In fact, I'll see you right now. Welcome to the program today, Thursday, the 9th of October, 2025. Set to be a historic day with the announcement of the ceasefire in Gaza. 2 years too late. Let's not forget, Hamas offered to release all the hostages immediately after October the 7th if Israel did not eviscerate and invade the entire Gaza Strip. But 600,000 or 700,000 dead people later, we finally have a ceasefire. Or so it seems. Israel managed to kill people every day during the previous ceasefire. And I don't think this one will be particularly different. I don't mean to sound cynical, but I'm not terribly optimistic about the long-term prospects. And also what now happens with the legal proceedings in the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court. What if Israel is indeed found guilty of genocide by the World Court? On what planet do we allow genocide guilty regimes to continue on their way? It's unthinkable. I saw the dreadful Julia Hartley Brewer posting on X saying, the ceasefire, does that mean that the protests will stop? Well, I don't think it will necessarily, Julia. I certainly hope not. The protests will stop when the guilty of genocide are brought to justice. And that includes you, Keir Starmer, and you, David Lammy, and you, Friedrich Merz, and you, Emmanuel Macron, as well, of course, as innumerable Israeli military officials. Otherwise, we are living in a barbaric world. Donald Trump wants to cover himself in glory, of course. He loves to take credit for these things, such as his overtly narcissistic personality. I don't see why this deal couldn't have been achieved months ago. There was a ceasefire in place, if you remember, not long after he came into office. Tens of thousands more people have been slaughtered, many of them starved to death since then, and all because Trump allowed himself to be pushed around by the demon-in-chief Netanyahu, who, of course, gifted him a gold-plated pager in typically gangsterish fashion, as much as to say, watch out, we can get to you too, Donald. Well, did the Israelis get to Charlie Kirk? That's an interesting question. And I've seen on social media in the last 24 hours, people positing very seriously that Candace Owens is now the most important journalist in the United States for the work she's been doing on uncovering Charlie Kirk's journey from dyed-in-the-wool Israel supporter to, well, we'll find out later in the program. Owens has unveiled a series of text messages from just before Charlie died, where it's obvious that he had decided to break ranks with Israel. Perhaps his Christian conscience finally got the better of him, and he'd begun to wonder what part of genocide Jesus Christ would have supported. We'll return to that theme later in the program. And I'm also going to be joined by my good friend and colleague, Dirk Pohlmann. Now, Dirk is a German journalist, author, screenwriter, director, and producer of about 25 historical documentaries for German public television. He's a particularly humane and wise old bird, if I may say so, with the breadth of understanding of German politics and indeed history, to put some genuine perspective on what's going on in that country now, with the announcement recently that they want to restart national service. Yes, conscription for young Germans. The last time they did that, it didn't end very well. Merz has said he wants Germany to be the biggest army in Europe. It's all this nonsense about the Russians invading or something. So I'll be getting into the details of that, what's going on in the European theatre with Dirk. But first, let's come right up to date with the latest on the ceasefire. It's worth remembering, this was pointed out on a space on X last night, that what Hamas agreed to and what the Israelis agreed to can often be very different things. This was a sticking point in negotiations on several occasions in the last few months, where a ceasefire proposal would be put to Hamas, they would agree to it, and then the Israelis would agree to something else that, of course, demanded far less of them. And that may indeed be the case this time. It may well be that the Israelis and Hamas are signing two different pieces of paper, but for the time being, we must remain in hope that the intolerable suffering of the people and the children of Palestine comes to an end sooner rather than later. At the moment, of course, as is often the case with these ceasefires, Israel likes to get a lot of killing in before they are supposed to stop. These are the scenes in Gaza this morning.
منطقة واد نعم الآن على ما يبدو قذيفة نعم قذيفة الآن على الهواء مباشرة.
Clouds of smoke you can see are from tank fire, and as you can see people scattered there on the rubble, on the sand, and the bombardments have apparently continued this morning. You know, the fact that ceasefire might be supposed to be coming into effect at some point today, you would think that might mean the shooting stopped immediately, but absolutely none of it. Anyway, here we are. This is Al Jazeera's update on the current state of the ceasefire negotiations.
Well, we're still waiting for details on what the final ceasefire plan looks like. Here's where it stood before these negotiations concluded. At the moment, Israeli forces control all areas up to the blue line you see on the screen. The plan said once both sides agreed to the proposal, the war would end immediately and Israeli forces would withdraw to the agreed line, which is in yellow, to prepare for the release of the captives. Then, after all the requirements set out in the US 20-point plan are met and an international stabilization force is deployed, Israeli forces will move further back to the red line. And the final withdrawal would see the Israelis move progressively further back towards the Israeli border, according to an agreement they would make with the transitional authority. But they would continue to maintain a security buffer zone inside Gaza's borders, including its crossing with Egypt. Let's bring in Muin Rabbani. He joins us live from Montreal. He's a non-resident fellow with the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies. Muin, we've spoken many times about Gaza over the last 2 years or so. I mean, Trump says this is a great day for the Muslim and Arab world. Let me ask you, is this a great deal, and how cautious should we be about it?
Well, I think we need to put it in perspective. When Trump and Netanyahu gave their joint press conference at the White House recently to unveil this proposal, Hamas was told, this is a 20-point proposal. You accept it all unconditionally, or you face total obliteration. Hamas managed to respond in a way that has now resulted in an agreement on one set of issues, exchange of captives, Israeli withdrawal, humanitarian aid, and cessation of hostilities. Those are the parts it was most interested in, while essentially ignoring and deferring those issues it could not accept. The Blair Witch Project on governance, post-war governance in the Gaza Strip, disarmament, and the broader political files. So assuming that this part of the agreement is implemented, and some details we still don't know, we then enter into uncertainty. Will there be agreement on governance in the Gaza Strip? Hamas is interested in agreement, but is, I think, along with other Palestinians, opposed to this Blair project, which is being proposed. From Israel's perspective, it may suit its interests not to have this governing project implemented as well, because then it can continue with the current situation in the Gaza Strip, prevent reconstruction, and save for another day. So, and the second issue, of course, is Trump's attention span. We saw this very clearly earlier in this year, where an agreement was reached, and it later emerged his only real concern was having an achievement on his inauguration day. And once that milestone was passed, he didn't really particularly care what happened next. And that's why we're entering into another agreement now, whose deadline appeared to be Friday, when the Nobel Peace Prize is announced. So the first phase will probably get implemented. The chances that it will then once again be abrogated by Israel with U.S. passive or active complicity is, I think, very high. And the idea that it's going to lead into an effort to address and resolve the underlying political crisis, which is the entire reason we're having this discussion, is, I think, close to nil.
Muin, we...
Yeah, it makes some very good points. And is there going to be any forensic sifting through the rubble of Gaza to determine exactly how many people have been slaughtered? Is there going to be any accountability for the slaughter? Are people going to be brought to justice? As he says, the Blair Witch Project, the real estate developer's dream, is that going to go ahead? We know that the Israelis would like to actually steal the whole of Gaza, and this is exactly how they think.
Yeah, you want to live in Gaza?
Yes.
With the Palestinians?
They will go. What do you mean?
Not with the Palestinians?
Of course
But there are
not.
2 million.
So there are 100 million Egyptians, so what? They will go to other countries.
But they
5 million Syrians went as refugees.
Yeah, but
So
it looks like they don't want to leave.
they want very much.
They want to leave Gaza.
Of course. Gaza is hell. No normal human being wants to live in a running sewage and in tent. They want to go to other countries to live normally. We should enable them.
A lot of people also want to stay.
No, it's not true.
They see it as their home.
Okay, so you want to continue. If I will say this and you will say that, how many times you want to say the same thing? Just let me know.
Yeah, because I think there's always another side.
That's Daniela Weiss, of course, one of the leaders of the settler movement, who are represented in the coalition government in Israel. Now, one journalist who won't be reporting on the ceasefire is Anas Al-Sharif.
يمكن أن نخلع هذه الخوذة ميادة التي أرهقتني طوال هذه الفترة، وهذا الدرع الذي كان جزء من جسدي خلال هذه المدة وخلال هذه الفترة.
But like 260 other journalists, he's been murdered since that was filmed. One journalist that I think the Zionists would love to see the back of, now being described as both the most important and the most hated journalist in the United States, is Candace Owens, because once she gets the bit between her teeth, whether it's the gender identity of the First Lady of France or now who killed Charlie Kirk, she doesn't tend to let go of it. And she's got a huge platform and a huge audience. This week, she's been making some extraordinary revelations about a text message thread just in the immediate days before Charlie was murdered, And let's hear from the woman herself.
And others knew that Charlie was done with Israel bullying him, and I am now going to present you proof of what I am saying. This is an actual group chat, which happened 2 days before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. There were 9 people in total on this chat, including Charlie and Rob McCoy. I'm going to protect the names of the other 7 for now. To be clear, I might actually release a name every day this week, but I want to show you this because suffice it to say, Rob McCoy was on this text thread, and I think it helps contextualize him as a person, in my view, that he would attack me for telling the truth about the pressure that he was facing. Take a look. So Charlie writes in this group chat, just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace. Somebody writes, oh. Charlie writes, Jewish donors play into all of the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. Then somebody writes, a donor writes, please do not invite Candace. That might feel good short term, but it's not good long term. In my opinion, like all groups, you're going to get a wide variety of opinions. That nasty free will thing that God bestowed on us makes life frustrating at times after the dust settles a bit, maybe. So again, this is 48 hours before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He was very clear and he was very explicit, and he did not back down, not in that Hamptons meeting, which they're all lying about, nor in this text thread. I'm not going to reveal the names of the other 7. Actually, you know what? I disagree with myself 4 seconds ago. Let's just throw in Josh Hammer for funsies. He's on this chat, okay? So what are we to make of that? Okay, now that I'm showing you this and showing to you that the conversations were real, I want you to reflect, and it took me a lot of patience to allow the lies that were being woven and the misrepresentations of people that were pretending that I was just, high on lying about Charlie and the pressure he was under, the attacks that not just me, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly faced for trying to stand up and tell the truth about what Charlie was actually going through. Why are you hearing it, though, from me and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly? Isn't that weird? You got people that are hosting a show. Have they, in like one honorable thing, come out and said, like, you know what? F a couple of these donors who made his life a living hell in the last couple of weeks. Why haven't they done that? There's also a rabbi in that chat. Like, why hasn't anybody made that move to at least say, to vindicate what I have been saying about what he was going through? That registers to me as very suspicious. I'm going to frankly say that it's suspicious to me. It makes me think that in the same way that Charlie was being pressured by money, that you might be now run by that same money, that those same donors might be running you to correct the ship and to focus yourselves on eulogizing Charlie as something and someone that never once flinched, never once for a single second doubted the Israeli cause.
Now, Turning Point USA responded, of course. They've admitted that the text message thread is real, but they won't own up to the consequences of that.
But I want to take the start of this show to address some of the things that have been going around on public, namely about a group text chain that has been made known and released by Candace Owens. And I just want to address it head on because, that was a screen grab that I had shared with people. So it is authentic. And I want to go into it because I actually am really excited that the truth is out there. I first want to say the reason I didn't share that screen grab publicly is because it was a private exchange, and I felt like it didn't necessarily comport with things that were already public. I wanted to not betray my friends.
Oh, yes, of course.
But I did share it with some people in government because it happened really quick. It was, it took 33 hours for authorities to get their suspect. And in those first moments, we wanted no stone unturned. We wanted to leave nothing unturned. So I shared it with a few people. Don't know where it went from there, apparently. But here we are. So one of the reasons, Blake, that I'm glad to have this now public, it was not mine to share publicly, but one of the criticisms we've received is that we don't care. We're not investigating every lead. We're not looking under every stone, and that somehow we're just like, sweeping things under the rug. And when I say that we want justice for Charlie more than anybody else, I really mean it, and no stone unturned.
I don't believe you.
I mean, I don't know if you want to chime in on that part alone, but I have more to say.
Yeah, so it has been so frustrating to have people blow up about this.
Yeah.
And I've certainly stated publicly, the reason I haven't weighed in on things is I am an eyewitness to events, and they've said, don't comment on things because anything you say can mess that up. I don't want to mess up any trial for the person who did this.
That's $1,000.
Yeah, who did it? That's the whole question, though, isn't it? An awful lot of flamming going on. Candice responded yesterday as follows.
3 people told me off record. 2 people who have this in a written communication from Charlie. One who is a Turning Point USA donor, and I would say very much one of the white knights in this. The very day before Charlie Kirk died, he expressed that he thought he was going to be killed. He told these people, I think they're going to kill me. Okay. He did not express that to me. So I am telling you this based off the testimony of 3 people. And I am saying this because I hope that these people who I think are good will be inspired to come forward with that. Now, again, those conversations I had were off record. I honor that. If I say it's off record, it stays off record. But I'm hoping that watching what I am doing and feeling the energy that is rising across the world for people who want to know what the heck happened on 9/10, that, they will be brave and they will say, yeah, Charlie did the day before he died think that he was going to be killed, and maybe tell us, who is they? Well, for once and for all, who is they? Who is the they that he thought were going to kill him? Now, to answer.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about they, don't they? They're going to do this, they're going to do that. They want to introduce this, that, and the other. But people often reluctant to name names as to exactly who they might be. Candice has now put together a dead man's switch. She's sent a folder of data, photographs, messages, all sorts of material to a number of particularly close confidants. And it seems Kanye West has done the same thing with Candice.
Yesterday, and which got picked up, was to create a kill switch, right? To realize that Kanye was kind of right. Never too late to say that Kanye was right. Kanye said that in order to be free, you had to violate these contracts. You had to recognize that your voice is being controlled. And Kanye did just that. It was really an act of bravery to free himself. But I have no doubt that the same people that were torturing Kanye, the same people that were torturing Charlie Kirk, if Kanye died today, would be the first to eulogize him. I feel that. I do. I feel that. And I think it's important to share that information, as Kanye sent me all of the messages of people who were threatening him. I have them all, to information share with Max Blumenthal, with people, people all over the place, to send a package and say, if anything happens to me and it looks suspicious, release it all. It's not even about having an opposite and equal reaction. I want it to be an unequal reaction. I want it to be a mistake, because it catalyzes people waking up and learning exactly how this matrix works. And Alex Jones, I brought this up on his show, my kill switch.
We're talking, of course, about the blackmail, the browbeating, the bribery. Matt Gaetz almost found himself in Donald Trump's cabinet, were it not for some peccadillos earlier in his career. But the former Florida congressman, now feels liberated to speak about some of the pressures he felt he was under when serving on Capitol Hill. Let's hear from Matt directly.
Initially, I resented the fact that there was no appreciation for nuance. Like if you asked any questions about any decision of the Israeli government in any place regarding settlements, regarding Gaza, whatever, you were like, you had deviated from the script. And I just, in any policy area, I had resentment over that. And then I saw the way the AIPAC worked, and that was weird for like a country lawyer like me. I remember my first AIPAC reception, and like your fundraiser tells you have to go, and your chief of staff tells you have to go, your committee chairman all tell you have to go, and you get there and you wear this name badge, and I remember there's a QR code on it. And what we were supposed to do was go talk to donors, and then if they liked you, they scanned your QR code to make a donation, like on the spot. And so can you just imagine how demoralizing that is to like be told that your job for the next several hours to go chat people up, hoping they would scan you like a can of tomato soup on the way out of the meeting.
I mean, it's literally purchasing.
Right. And so I saw that and I was like, wow, that is so freaking weird. And then, I was in Israel. I went multiple times, and I did not like the fact that I found someone in my room rooting around in my stuff that should not have been there at the King David Hotel when I came back to my room when no one was expecting me to be back in my room. And I just
presumably Israeli law enforcement.
I don't know who it was. I just thought, like, this is weird. All of these things combined are odd, and then the policy outgrowth seems to be an obsession about the Middle East that has not served my generation well. I just don't.
Extraordinary stuff from Matt there. The best politics money can buy. An extraordinary thing, just having your QR code scanned at an AIPAC donors event for the seal of approval. Beep, there you go. Another $50,000 in the coffer. But you must do exactly as we say. As Matt said, you mustn't stray off the reservation. You mustn't leave the ultra-tight, acceptable viewpoint corridor. Not only do the Americans have the best democracy money can buy, they also have the best media money can buy. You may or may not know that CBS recently purchased the Free Press, as it's called, which is Barry Weiss's website and YouTube channel. Now, if you know anything about independent media, then go to the Free Press. You can find it on YouTube. The viewing figures there, 16,000 for one recent video about how October the 7th changed everything. 16,000 views. Those are not the numbers of a $150 million company, but that's what Paramount, CBS have paid for the Free Press to install Barry Weiss as head of CBS News, Columbia Broadcasting Services. She is, of course, an extremely vocal, unequivocal Israel advocate. That's why she's got the job. That's why they got the sweetheart deal.
Well, the Israelis have effectively taken over American media. Barry Weiss is the owner of the Free Press, which she just recently sold to CBS News for $150 million. Not a small amount of money. Plus, she gets elevated to editor-in-chief of CBS News. This is David Ellison. This is the son of Larry Ellison. He is the CEO of Paramount. She is actually going to be reporting directly to David Ellison, bypassing traditional network leadership structure. David Ellison, the son of Larry Ellison, the largest single donor to the IDF, and he is the largest shareholder in TikTok. Larry Ellison and family own Paramount Skydance, a massive corporation which holds these brands. Look at all these brands that are under the Paramount Skydance banner, and the Ellison family owns now all of these brands. They control CBS, including CBS News, MTV, Nickelodeon, BET, Miramax. The list goes on. Now, you might not remember Barry Weiss. She called Tulsi Gabbard a toady, saying that she was an Assad apologist. Barry Weiss is extremely pro-Israel. Obviously, the Israelis hated Assad. They really wanted to topple Assad. Calls her a toady. Doesn't even know what a toady is.
She's an Assad toady.
What does that mean?
She is
What's a toady?
I think that I used that word correctly. Jamie, can you check what toady means?
This wasn't a well-deserved promotion to editor-in-chief of CBS News. She's a Netanyahu toady. To use her own words, she's a Netanyahu toady. Now she's running CBS News, and it gets worse. You thought this was bad enough. It actually gets worse. Let's talk about Warner Brothers Discovery. These are all the brands under the Warner Brothers Discovery brand. You've got, of course, Warner Brothers, TNT, Food Network, HBO, TBS, TLC, CNN, HBO Max, HGTV, Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, New Line Cinema. Well, guess who's about to buy it? The Ellisons. How is this even allowed? How are they allowed to acquire practically all of American media and social media and run it under their Israeli thumbs? How is this even allowed? They already control too much, and they're not loyal to America. It is shameful. It is treasonous. We cannot allow them to control an ounce more.
Yes, Kim Iverson there with that report. Of course, we are not owned by the Ellisons here at Unprecedented TV. We are entirely independent. And you can see my Buy Me a Coffee address down there at the bottom of the screen if you wish to support us. In a moment, I'll be joined by Dirk Pohlmann. But first, a quick message. Hello, I'm Basil Valentine, and this is Unprecedented TV, unfiltered, uncensored, unprecedented, the home of free speech here on the internet. Do please like and subscribe over at YouTube. Follow us on X, and remember, I'm on air every day, Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. for Ascending Order, your daily news edit with live guests and all the genuinely most important stories from around the world. Don't allow yourself to be propagandized by the corporate media. Forget the world at one on Radio 4. Join me, Basil Valentine, instead, 1 p.m. on X, Monday to Friday, also on YouTube. And I'll see you all very soon. So there we go. We do live and breathe for independent media. Dirk, I know you do too. It's becoming an increasingly stifled space, isn't it? Now we've, got Merz taking over in your native Germany. How come you've ended up with such an abysmal person as Chancellor?
Very hard to understand. I mean, the whole situation in Europe is very hard to understand. It doesn't make any sense if you think about that. Europe should have an interest in being somewhat independent, being a voice in the world, not going after the usual idiocy stuff that we all have to follow right now. We are in danger of escalating a war that is lost already militarily in Ukraine, but still Germany is looking in a way like we have an elite, and this elite is going not the direction that Germany under the Social Democrats and also under Chancellor Kohl went. That was détente. It was basically trust us, we are reasonable. We are not the Germany of the 30s and 40s anymore. But to be honest, I think we smell a lot like that right now. And people voted for it. It's on the other hand, you have the strongest opposition party in Germany, the AfD, gaining more and more traction. They are stronger than the Christian Democrats now in the polls. And the reaction in Germany is to trying to make them illegal so that you cannot vote for them. You don't have to be a fan of that party, but it just shows you that everything is going apart. The German economy is in ruins. And there's, for me, honestly, there's no way to understand why people vote for that. The Christian Democrats, in a way, have been the party of don't change very much, stay on course, do the same for forever. And maybe this is what a lot of people hope for, that the writing on the wall that we all see will disappear when you vote for Merz, but it doesn't. Yeah, and we're going down. We're going down Titanic-wise quite fast, and there's nobody who's going to help us. And I don't really know. I think we can discuss that, why it came to this situation. But right now, Germany is in the worst situation since the end of World War II, and economically, politically, and even militarily.
And it seems the solution is conscription, reintroducing national service. The last time you did that, it didn't end very well. Let's just hear this quick clip.
Die Wehrpflicht ist zwingend notwendig für unsere Landesverteidigung. Was auch unstrittig ist, ist, dass unsere Soldaten niemals in fremde Kriegsgebiete geführt werden dürfen. Niemals. Vor allem nicht in die Ukraine. Unsere Kinder, unsere Söhne, unsere Soldaten werden niemals für die Ukraine sterben. Wenn jemand Krieg will, dann sollen sie gefälligst selbst gehen. Soll ein Friedrich Merz an die Grenze gehen, in die Ukraine. Er soll selbst dienen oder ein Lars Klingbeil oder diese ganzen Kriegsverweigerer aus der SPD-Fraktion. Die sollen einfach mal beweisen, was sie drauf haben, wenn sie diesen Krieg fortsetzen wollen.
My German is a bit rusty, Dirk. If you'd be so kind as to break down that clip for us, would be much appreciated.
Yeah, that is Alice Weidel, chief of the AfD, and she basically says, we will not die in your war. That's a very strange situation. She rightfully mentions that most of the people who are now willing to join the war one way or another. Just shortly before we talked, there's news that the European Union said that they all voted for shooting down Russian planes if they go into European airspace. So this is brand new. That is very bad news because it's insanity once again. And she said, we will not die in your war, basically. That's the bottom line. Most of these people who are belligerents now have not served in the German forces. The strange situation is that our former highest soldier ever after World War II, Harald Kujat, who was general, he had the highest military rank in the NATO of all soldiers. So he was the what do you call it, the speaker or what for the NATO, and he regularly is warning what is happening now. But he's a no-go person for our mainstream media. He's not interviewed anymore. Can you imagine? The guy who had been the highest NATO soldier ever in the German uniform is not interviewed because what he has to say is, you're going on the wrong track. This is not necessary. It's very dangerous. Stop it. But what we have in a way is that our elites that we have been brainwashed in the transatlantic societies. And if you disagree with that, even if you are the former head of NATO, you're simply you're canceled from the discussion. The same applies to General Watt, who had been German general, who had been the advisor to Angela Merkel. And he's the same. He just he brought out a book together with Klaus von Donani, who was more than 90 years old social democratic person from the Détente policy, and his family were in the resistance in the Third Reich. So he is a well-known person in Germany. They together published a book saying that all of this is insanity. This is not in the interest of Germany. It's not in the interest of Europe. But they are canceled. They're canceled from the public discourse. And the elites that we have in media, in politics, are heading into the same direction, which is acting as if they could fight a war. They cannot. I mean, NATO is much stronger than Russia. It's about 3 times stronger if you take it in terms of the military devices and the people. But Europe alone is not able to do that. And it's like pounding on your chest, trying to act like King Kong when in fact you are just a small baboon. Yeah, a small one, not a big one.
And of course, it all boils down to what is almost a mind virus, Dirk, the groupthink that Russia is going to invade Western Europe. Merz has said he wants Germany to become the biggest army in Europe. This paranoia, is it entirely confected or is there some basis in reality to it?
No basis on reality. This is what it's so hard to understand what I say. I sit, I'm here in vacation and I sit and watch what's going on, and it's terrible. And like I said, it's that the elites, they are talking to themselves. They are not discussing with the normal people. As I said, the AfD, you don't have to be a fan of that party, but they're the strongest opposition party, and they're gaining traction by simply being the only real opposition in the parliament to this one-size-fits-all policy of the other parties. The point is just that it's a closed shop mentality. You know, Ursula von der Leyen, she has 7 children, but they definitely will not go to war. They can all volunteer from my perspective. I had been a volunteer in the German military force, but I go along with Harald Kujat. It's sheer madness and trying to become a big army again. What for? I highly recommend the new foreword of Emmanuel Todd's book, The Decline of the West. I think that's the title in English. It's a brilliant book, one of the most important. And he just said that our elites have lost contact with reality on all sides of the political spectrum. They don't see it, and Russia is not a danger. They overlook also that they're losing traction worldwide. The so-called international community turned their back towards the West, especially towards Europe. And we are not, and the USA as well. Russia is gaining credibility in the global South. BRICS is getting stronger. But if you look into our media, if you listen to our politicians, they still as if they are the big King Kong, as I said, but they are a baboon with one leg. They cannot fulfill what they say. They can just bring us all into danger. I've never seen anything like this, and it's getting worse and worse. You were just reporting what's going on in the United States with the media. So the media itself is a subsystem that has no connection to reality. Our politicians are a subsystem that have hardly any connection to reality. So that situation is, it's a dysfunctional political system, and it's dysfunctional also in terms of keeping peace. I don't know what to say about it. I've never seen anything that bad as it is right now.
No, without doubt, we've got far and away the most intellectually impoverished political class in our lifetimes, Dirk. If you know, even go back to the times of Helmut Kohl and before that to Chancellor Schmidt, these people were giants compared to those on the world stage today, regardless of what we thought about individual policies or whatever. One had some sense of reassurance. Now we've got a political class that seems entirely self-serving, most of whom have never had a job outside the world of politics itself, and a groupthink emerges whereby you gain promotion in political circles by agreeing with the person immediately above you, and they then promote you to the position that they're vacating, and on it goes. It's entirely detached from any moral absolutes, for example. There are no standards in public life, and there are no commonly held principles either. I announce on this program at regular intervals that I stand for truth, justice, freedom, and universal human rights. But you can't find a politician who would stand under the same banner without being a total hypocrite.
It is that it's for a long time I talked with my colleagues and I said, what's going on? Why is it this way? First, our task as journalists, or the task of media, is to bring all these, if you would want to call it, like subsystems in a big subsystem, which is society, together, make sure that they know what the other subsystems say. And it has been difficult for a long time. For example, I did science reporting for a long time, and what's going on in science is not very well translated to the general public. But that's only one subsystem. But what you see now is that there's not even an intention. If somebody is a dissident, they are simply cast aside. We have a lot of cases, meanwhile. In Germany, it's, for example, former Professor Ulrike Gero, who had been a darling. She's a very bright woman, now I think 61 or so, and she was all over our media. You could say also, in a way, I think Greta Thunberg is a good example. She had been a darling of our media as long as the topic was climate change. Now that she's in Gaza, I mean, what I read from witnesses is that she had been paraded, and she had to parade in an Israeli flag. She was dragged by her hair through the room. She didn't get something to drink. And this is now Greta Thunberg in Germany. We have a lot of publications who are strictly pro-Israel, and they ridicule her. So she went from hero to zero within a few years. Same for Ulrike Giraud, who had been the darling always on discussions about Europe. Her main topic was Europe. She speaks several European languages perfectly. And she was fired from university. She lost her income now. She's, trying to make a living meanwhile. This is what happens to you. This is what happens in Germany. And so it's even, that it is dangerous to be a dissident, to have a different viewpoint. And you're simply an outcast meanwhile. So all of that talk about media being something like let's say the fairground where you can show up, and if you have a good idea, you talk, and there are rules, and there are no boxing fights anymore. There are no rules. It's kind of a mafia display where whenever you are not, you don't have the opinion of the Godfather, then you're dead. You're out. You're out of the business. You're out of the game. I know several academics to whom these happened. My colleague Patrick Barb, who is a longtime journalist, and he had been a professor at a university for journalism. Same destiny. So,
what was his offense? What was his offense? I'm curious.
You won't believe it. He wrote a book about the Ukraine conflict, and he went to both sides. He went to Russia and to Ukraine and reported from both sides. And that was called the fake version of objectivity. The real objectivity that he had to show was to go along the line of his university, to follow the public, their public speaking points. They called what he did fake objectivity, to go and talk to both sides. This was his, it doesn't even deserve to be discussed, but this is what we have. And,
well, it's indicative of the disintegration of diplomacy and indeed of intellectualism, because we've reached a point of totalitarianism when it comes to discussion in that case, or even inquiry, isn't it? And, diplomacy is now derided as appeasement, even
yes.
Talking to the other side, as your friend and colleague did, is automatic reason for disqualification. It's completely insane. It's a road to hell.
Yeah, it is. And I think we have to understand that we are completely on the wrong track. And one of the questions I still have, how could that have happened? There should be checks and balances in a system that make sure that something like this cannot go without brakes, that you're not going downhill towards the abyss without anybody saying, "Wait, we're on the wrong track." Yeah, it's nothing like that. So it's also, in a way, it means that our political system, if it produces a class of mediocre figures who are not really fit to do their job.
That's right.
The question is, what is the Darwinist environment that created the swamp that we live in? And is there a possibility to resurrect it? I don't even talk about political opinions. I simply talk about a basic quality of intellectual capacity to look at the world, to look at reality. And meanwhile, this is something I share. I forgot about left and right wing to a large degree, because I'm just happy if there are people who you can discuss things with, when it's possible, that have the idea of free speech still up. They are there. But I have to say, coming rather from the left wing, that nowadays it's in a way most of the times easier to talk with conservatives, liberal conservatives on a reasonable platform than with people from the left wing. And I highly recommend the article from Emmanuel Todd, who said that both of these factions lost contact with reality, and they lost contact with the foundations of our society. He calls it a Protestant nihilism, what European societies and the American society went into. He's not that he thinks that being religious is the savior method to get out of that. But he, I think, rightfully describes that we don't really believe in anything anymore, and that is the main problem. That we don't have a common ground that we adhere to, which still existed when I went to university, but I have to say right now it's not there. And It's an alarm clock. The problem is where to go. Should I go to the South Pacific or where?
We thought that we believed in universal human rights and international law. Those things have been swept aside. We had a wonderful dissident in this country, Ian Crane, sadly no longer with us, and he titled his show Humanity versus Insanity, because it is. And I think that's more apt now than ever. The rule of law, of course, has been undermined more by the genocide in Gaza than any other single event over the last couple of years. And one of its chief supporters has been your own Chancellor Merz. Now, he finally broke ranks very, very slightly a couple of weeks ago when people queuing for food at the misnamed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation were mown down by troops with machine guns. Let's hear from Merz now. First, of course, we have to have the pledge of undying loyalty to the Zionist entity.
Wir unterstützen die israelische Armee, das ist kein Geheimnis. Wir unterstützen Israel. Israel und meine Grundeinstellung zu Israel hat sich nie geändert. Aber unsere uneingeschränkte Solidarität mit Israel, die hat für mich nie auf dem Prüfstand gestanden. Mein persönliches Verhältnis zu Israel ist uneingeschränkt gut. Das ist ein tolles Land. Das, was aber die israelische Armee dort gemacht hat, ging nach meiner Auffassung zu weit.
It's what the former Chancellor Angela Merkel called Staatsrassen in Germany, is it not? That Germany has to be permanently shackled to whatever Israel does, regardless.
That was very strong. You have to understand this is not well known, but this is a fact. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact that Germany paid the money for the Israel nuclear program. In the very early 60s. They paid more than 100 million at that time, Deutsche Mark, per year to Israel. And that was the intention.
That program is undeclared, and Israel has not signed the non-proliferation treaty. I mean, surely those payments were, under some treaty illegal, Dirk.
Yeah, they were. They were for a nuclear desalination plant in the Negev desert. That's where the money went from. The money was paid to a large degree. It was supposed to be 1.2 billion at that time. This was from Uncle Scrooge, from the Disney. These sums were not imaginable. But this is a fact, and also Israel has 6 German submarines with huge torpedo tubes in which they can fire their Harpoon special torpedo rockets with nuclear warheads. That is their second strike capability. 3 of them were paid for by Germany. And in fact, Israel has 6, and 3 were paid for Germany. So Germany was in a situation to say, basically, we pay for World War II, what we did to the Jews. There are several problems with that. One problem is that there was of course a program in Germany to kill all the Jews that they could have a hand on in Europe. And they were able to kill 6 million, that is clear. But they killed 27 million Soviet people. Just in the Soviet Union alone. And there was a plan to kill all of the Slavic population in Eastern Europe, which was called Generalplan Ost. And there was a plan to hunger 30 million people in the occupied area, which was called the Hunger Plan. And for example, this is a thing this is not known. There's kind of a hierarchy of the victims. And you cannot say anything about anything that is Jewish or in comparison Israel. But you can now have the same arguments or similar arguments. We have Nazis working with Western intelligence services, like in the late 40s and 50s in Operation Aerodynamic, where they were used trying to bring down in a rollback operation the Soviet Union. And the same thing is going on in Ukraine with the same people. It's even with the same organizations, sometimes with the same families that they're working on. And Germany is, what we have learned from World War II is that we have to support the Jews. But about the Russians and the Slavic people, who cares about them? We had people on TV and shows who said that Russians look like humans, like European humans, but they are not. They just look like it. Can you imagine things like that? If you would imagine somebody would say something about a Jewish population in Germany like about that. So this is one of the things, this Staatsräson, which you mentioned, means that it's the reason to be for Germany is to be for that. And now that you have a government in Israel, which is genocidal, you have to make a decision if you go with a genocide because you want to be on the right side, but we're on the wrong side. And a lot of the people in Europe, for example, we had huge demonstrations right now in Spain. 2 million people were in Spain on the streets to demonstrate against Gaza. Italy, the same. Yeah. So there, and if you, I'm right in Greece right now. If you arrive, there's a lot of graffiti here about that. So these people have a much more, let's say, deeply humane revolt against what's going on there because it's so awful. But in Germany, the overlay is that it was always right to be in favor of Israel, so we stay with that. And so Germany has, unfortunately, a tendency to be historically on the wrong side, I think. I didn't want to say that for a long time, but I think it's true. We don't get the curve. It's something that where the rationality is not strong enough. And the humanity in most of the Romanic countries in Europe is much stronger than it is in Germany, and it's stronger in the Scandinavian countries. But that's also, this is another story that is hardly known. The Swedish people have Count Folke Bernadotte, who was a member of the royal family in Sweden.
Yes.
And he saved something like 20,000 Jews in World War II in negotiations with Himmler and the Germans, and made sure that they could survive. And he was sent to Israel by the United Nations to have a deal, to give a proposal how the situation in Palestine could be solved. And his proposal, bottom line, was for several years, there can be as many Jews as they want to come to Israel and live there. But you have to take the 700,000 people that were cast aside in the Nakba, the Palestinians. They all have the right to come back and live there, and they should live together in one state. That was his proposal. And he was killed by an Israeli terror attack by the Stern Gang, it was called. Their head was Yitzhak Shamir, the later president. You had Menachem Begin, who's also a known terrorist in that. And Folke Bernadotte was killed by these people. That made a huge imprint on Sweden. And then Dag Hammarskjöld came to Israel, and David Ben-Gurion had the murderer of Folke Bernadotte was his security guy, the personal security guy of David Ben-Gurion. And in a bancade at the state, he set Dag Hammarskjöld, Secretary of the United Nations, next to this murderer of Folke Bernadotte. He didn't know about it. He was told about it afterwards. And after, of course, that means, first, it means we do whatever we want. And second, you could be the next one on our list. And Dag Hammarskjöld answered, he said, I will never visit this country again. That is something, if you go talk to Swedish people, they know that story. You can read it in Hebrew on Israeli websites, but it's not known anywhere else in the world.
It's pure gangsterism, Dirk, and we've seen another recent example. I can't help thinking that the gold-plated pager that Netanyahu gave Donald Trump in the White House earlier this week was a similar threat, and Trump is apparently afraid of Netanyahu.
That is a very strange situation. I mean, my colleagues and me, we have a YouTube show, and we followed the Charlie Kirk case because one of my colleagues, as me, I'm a specialist for the JFK murder, and he is too. And we were immediately, in this case, with here's something wrong. You have, there's a strong desire to have one person as the killer of Charlie Kirk when you see something is deeply wrong with the whole story. And then you have this backside story. You have Candace Owens, who does an incredibly good job as a young conservative. I say that as a left-wing person. I admire her courage and the way she handles these things. She comes out, she's investigating that, and she's very good watchdog, very strong. And she found a lot of things that, for example, I noticed I am on several Telegram channels here. And one of them is Israeli propaganda, basically. I have it to see what they published to the outside world regarding Gaza and so on. And they immediately gave the impression that Charlie Kirk was killed by some woke people in the United States, and he was such a good friend of Israel. And then came Candace Owens, now with a showing that 2 days before he was killed, he announced that he would have to stay away from Israel because they put him under such pressure. And you can see how big the influence of Israel is in the American politics. I mean, Trump, 120 million from the Adelson family, he has to deliver for that in a way. And there you have a speech of Benjamin Netanyahu in the Congress, and it's about 60 minutes long, and they have 58 standing ovations. They should have had a standing ovation all the time. Then it reminds me. Do you know the Stalin bell? When Stalin was, he held a speech. Nobody dared to be the first one to stop clapping. So the applause went on forever. So they had a bell that was ringing, which meant stop applauding. So nobody would be the first one to stop. Yeah, that was the Stalin bell. We are in a situation like that. It's not, if you want a democracy that has something to do with the meaning of the word, this is not the way to run the things. Yeah. And United States is in a terrible state. Of Europe is in a terrible state. And as a German, I have to say, right now we had, there's this official story in Germany that Nord Stream was blown up by Ukrainian divers from the sailing boat. And they have one in Italy now. They want from Italy to be investigated. For me, it's a story you can have a nice cover story for the next years, where you have people from Ukraine and they will be, you go to Italy and say, deliver him. There's one in Poland right now. And Germany wants him for Poland to deliver the person to the German authorities to investigate him as a culprit. And Italy is considering to do it, but Poland just said yesterday, no, we won't do it because we consider the existence of Nord Stream a larger crime than blowing it up. And so inside Europe, one European country says to Germany, shows them the middle finger and says, your investigation, which is ridiculous in itself, because we all know who did it. Yeah. I mean, Donald Trump 2 times said now that it was the United States, it was his idea, and only Biden followed his advice. It was not Biden's idea. It was my idea, Trump's idea. And the Americans did it. So this is the state we are in. This is where we in Germany live in. And so, they say it was against our interest. And it was against the interest because Poland and Ukraine got a lot of money for the gas coming from Russia to Germany. They put a price tag on top of that. So they had a strong interest to do that. But this is, I mean, the whole story of the Nord Stream explosion is ridiculous. We all know who did it. And we get this fake versions. And now the Polish government even says, no, we won't hand out this suspect because we think, as I said, yeah, it is unbelievable. It's like a Zucker brother movie, like a Kentucky Fried Movie or Airplane all the time. You think, is this real what I see here?
I know. And every week it seems to get worse. Every week it seems to double down. Here in the UK, the man vying to be the next leader of the Conservative Party wants to see the flag of Israel at every point of entry to the UK, believe it or not. Robert Jenrick. Absolutely bizarro stuff. Dirk Pohlmann, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today on Unprecedented TV, Ascending Order. And I do hope to see you again very soon. My apologies for interrupting your holiday over there in Crete. It looks jolly nice.
It's always a pleasure, and it reminds me that we have reasonable people all over, and we should work together. That's about
I agree. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dirk. There he goes. That's the author, respected academic and filmmaker Dirk Pohlmann. I'm Basil Valentine. This has been Ascending Order. I do hope you've enjoyed the program. Something different, not the mainstream, genuine, informed opinions and the latest news. And I'll be back with it all again at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.